These are 15 secrets about the 1970 film Patton that the cast and crew kept quiet for decades, revealing a production filled with deception, obsession, and unexpected consequences that reached all the way to the White House. In many ways, the story of the film is as dramatic as the story it tells on screen, layered with behind-the-scenes tensions, creative gambles, and moments that only make sense when viewed with the benefit of hindsight. What seemed at the time like just another ambitious Hollywood production slowly revealed itself to be something far more culturally significant, a project whose ripples would be felt long after the cameras stopped rolling and the sets were dismantled. When producer Frank McCarthy finally got his dream project greenlit after 20 years of trying, nobody could have predicted that this biographical war film would become one of the most influential movies in American political history. The sheer persistence required to bring the project to life already hinted that the production would be anything but ordinary, marked by a sense of destiny that many participants later described in interviews and memoirs. But behind the cameras, a series of carefully guarded secrets were unfolding that would remain hidden from the public for decades, quietly shaping both the film itself and the stories people would later tell about it. The first and perhaps most audacious secret involves director Franklin Schaffner's outright deception of his lead actor. George C. Scott had agreed to play General Patton, but when he learned that the famous flag speech would open the film, he flat out refused to perform it. Scott felt that nothing he did afterward could possibly live up to that iconic moment. So Schaffner looked Scott straight in the eye and lied. He told the actor that the speech would be placed at the end of the film, not the beginning. Scott believed him, performed the scene, and only discovered the truth when he saw the finished movie. That legendary opening, which has become one of cinema's most recognizable moments, exists only because of a director's calculated deception. In retrospect, the incident reveals the delicate balance between artistic vision and actor psychology, a reminder that filmmaking often depends on fragile negotiations and bold decisions made under pressure. The second secret involves those ivory-handled revolvers Scott wore during that very speech. And these weren't movie props at all, but the actual pistols that belonged to the real George S. Patton. The weapons were on loan from the museum at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where they're normally displayed as historical artifacts. Every time you see Scott's hands resting on those gun handles, you're looking at pieces of authentic World War II history. Their presence added a tangible weight to the performance, a subtle authenticity that audiences could feel even if they didn't consciously recognize it, reinforcing the film's reputation for meticulous attention to detail. But here's where it gets interesting. The third secret reveals that Scott's entire vocal portrayal was completely wrong. The real George S. Patton had a surprisingly high-pitched voice, the exact opposite of Scott's deep, gravelly delivery. Soldiers who served under Patton confirmed this, and you can actually hear it in surviving recordings of the general. Patton himself was acutely aware of how his voice sounded, which is why he used profanity so liberally. He thought it compensated for his less than commanding vocal tone. Scott's booming baritone created an entirely different character than the historical figure. This contrast between reality and performance illustrates how cinematic truth often diverges from historical accuracy in order to create a stronger emotional impression. The fourth secret involves Scott's personal demons during production. The actor was battling severe alcoholism throughout filming, and it wasn't just affecting his off-camera life. Scott missed 8 days of work, some due to eye problems, but others because he was, in his own words, drinking hard and feeling mean. He would later admit, "I got fed up, exhausted, and frustrated, so I'd go out and get loaded." Director Schaffner essentially had to babysit Scott through his drinking binges while somehow extracting a career-defining performance from him. The tension between vulnerability and brilliance became part of the film's mythology, illustrating how great performances sometimes emerge from deeply complicated circumstances. The fifth secret centers on Karl Malden's portrayal of General Omar Bradley. Throughout the film, Bradley and Patton appeared to be close friends with mutual respect for each other. This was pure Hollywood fiction. In reality, Omar Bradley not only disliked Patton, but actually feared him. The two men were polar opposites in background, temperament, and personality. According to Patton biographer Carlo D'Este, Bradley knew Patton well enough to dislike him both personally and professionally. The warm friendship depicted in the movie was entirely fabricated to serve the narrative. This creative choice demonstrates how storytelling priorities often reshape real relationships into forms that better fit dramatic structure. This becomes even more ironic when you learn the sixth secret. Bradley himself was the film's senior technical advisor. He was literally being paid to help create a false version of his own relationship with Patton. Some film scholars suggest this is why the movie actually glorifies Bradley more than Patton himself. It was, in part, Bradley's version of events. The collaboration between subject and storyteller blurred the line between memory and myth, leaving historians to untangle where documentation ends and interpretation begins. The seventh secret involves that famous opening speech itself. While audiences assumed they were hearing Patton's actual words, the entire monologue was manufactured by Francis Ford Coppola. The real Patton never gave that specific speech to his troops. Instead, Coppola brilliantly cobbled together various statements that Patton had made at different times and places, creating what would become one of cinema's most memorable monologues. It was historical fiction presented as historical fact. The effectiveness of the speech underscores the power of narrative construction, showing how carefully arranged fragments can feel more authentic than any single real event. The eighth secret reveals an unintended consequence that caught everyone by surprise. Now, when the film played at military bases across the United States, theater owners reported a peculiar phenomenon. Soldiers in the audience would frequently stand up and snap to attention when they heard the movie's opening line, 10 Hut. They assumed it was a real call to attention, not realizing the film had started. The movie begins without showing the 20th Century Fox logo or any other indication that it's beginning, making this confusion almost inevitable. The reaction became a story in its own right, illustrating how convincingly the film blurred the boundary between cinematic space and real military culture. The ninth secret involves Karl Malden's personal Easter egg hidden in the dialogue. When General Bradley loses his helmet after his Jeep is blown up by German artillery, he tells his driver, "Give me that helmet, Sekulovich." And this wasn't in the original script. Malden insisted on including a character named Sekulovich in all his films, referencing his own birth name, Mladen Sekulovich. It was his private joke that audiences never caught. Small personal touches like this remind us that even in large-scale productions, individual identities quietly leave their imprint. The 10th secret concerns Scott's extreme physical transformation for the role. The actor didn't just study Patton's mannerisms, he had moles attached to his face in the exact spots where Patton had them. He shaved his head and wore a gray crew-cut wig. His naturally hooked nose was filled in and shortened with putty. Scott had his dentist create special caps to duplicate Patton's teeth. He read 13 Patton biographies multiple times each and borrowed old newsreels of the general, watching them so obsessively that producer Frank McCarthy recalled they were completely worn out when Scott finally returned them. When Patton's own daughter saw the film, she was reportedly astonished by the resemblance. The level of dedication became a benchmark for future biographical performances, often cited as an example of total immersion in a role. The 11th secret involves the film's profanity, or rather, the lack thereof. Coppola and co-writer Edmund North had to significantly tone down Patton's actual language throughout the script to avoid an R rating. In the opening monologue, the word fornicating replaced a much stronger expletive when Patton was criticizing the Saturday Evening Post. The real general's vocabulary was apparently so colorful that Hollywood couldn't accurately portray it without severely limiting the film's audience. This compromise highlights the constant negotiation between authenticity and accessibility that filmmakers must navigate. The 12th secret reveals the Spanish Army's initial reaction to the script. When producer McCarthy showed them the screenplay, they refused at first to believe their portrait of Patton was accurate. As McCarthy explained, for where Patton was a bastard, George C. Scott depicts him as a bastard. The Spanish military couldn't accept that an American film would portray one of their World War II heroes with such unflinching honesty about his character flaws. Their hesitation underscores how national pride and historical memory can shape reactions to artistic interpretation. But the 13th secret dwarfs all the others in terms of historical significance. President Richard Nixon became completely obsessed with the film after screening it in the White House on April 4, 1970. Nixon told his aide, Bob Haldeman, "You should go see Patton. He inspired people. Charge them up, Bob. That's what a chief of staff should do." Secretary of State William Rogers noted that the movie comes up during every Nixon conversation. According to author Stanley Carnow, Nixon watched the film repeatedly, seeing Patton Patton as a fellow solitary, misunderstood genius. The depth of this fascination reveals how cultural artifacts can resonate personally with leaders in ways that extend far beyond entertainment. The president instructed his senior staff and advisors to watch Patton and to act more like the famous general. This obsession with a Hollywood movie may have actually influenced major foreign policy decisions. Some historians suggest that Nixon's fascination with Patton's bold leadership style contributed to his decision to invade Cambodia, viewing it through the lens of what Patton might have done. Whether symbolic or substantive, the connection between cinema and policy remains one of the most intriguing aspects of the film's legacy. The 14th Secret involves international intelligence agencies. Foreign governments were so aware of Nixon's obsession that they began studying the film to predict his behavior. When preparing for Nixon's historic visit to China, Premier Zhou Enlai ordered a copy of Patton specifically to better understand how the American president might act during his stay. A Hollywood war movie had become required viewing for world leaders trying to decode U.S. foreign policy. The episode illustrates how perception and image can become tools of diplomacy, even when those images originate in fiction. The 15th and final secret concerns George C. Scott's unprecedented rejection of his Academy Award. Scott had warned the Academy months in advance that he would refuse the Best Actor Oscar, calling the ceremony a 2-hour meat parade, a public display with contrived suspense for economic reasons. When Goldie Hawn announced his name as the winner, Scott wasn't in the building. He was at his New York farm with his family. The gesture became one of the most famous acts of protest in awards history, reinforcing Scott's reputation as fiercely independent. But here's what most people don't know. Scott reportedly told the Academy to donate his Oscar to a Patton museum, but because he never put these instructions in writing, it never happened. The Best Picture Oscar ended up at the George C. Marshall Foundation Library at the Virginia Military Institute, donated by producer Frank McCarthy, but Scott's personal Oscar presumably remained with the Academy. The unresolved fate of the statuette adds a final note of ambiguity to an already legend-filled story. These secrets reveal a production that was far more complex and influential than anyone realized at the time. From a director's necessary deception to a president's dangerous obsession, Patton became something unprecedented, a war film that may have actually influenced real wars. The cast and crew kept these stories quiet for decades, perhaps understanding that the legend of their film had grown far beyond anything they originally intended. Over time, the accumulation of anecdotes and revelations transformed the movie into a case study of how art and history intertwine. Scott's refusal of the Oscar, his struggles with alcoholism, the historical inaccuracies, and the behind-the-scenes deceptions might have damaged the film's reputation if revealed earlier. Instead, these secrets remained buried while Patton cemented its place as one of cinema's greatest biographical films, earning preservation in the National Film Registry and maintaining a 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The endurance of its reputation suggests that audiences often embrace complexity when it deepens rather than diminishes a story's impact. The irony is profound. A movie filled with fabrications and compromises somehow captured essential truths about leadership, war, and the complexity of heroism. That's the ultimate secret Patton kept for decades. Sometimes fiction can be more honest than fact, and sometimes the most powerful truths emerge from the most carefully constructed lies. This paradox is part of what continues to make the film a subject of discussion among historians, critics, and movie lovers alike. Today, as we finally understand the full scope of what happened during that 1969 production in Spain, we can see Patton not just as entertainment or even as biography, but as a fascinating case study in how Hollywood mythology can shape real-world events. The secrets the cast kept quiet have now become part of the film's enduring legacy, adding new layers to a story that was already larger than life. And with each retelling, the film's history grows richer, reminding us that sometimes the stories behind the camera are just as compelling as the ones captured on screen.